All right, everybody. So here we are. We're going to lay in the JavaScript for our quiz. And I just want to show you what we have so far. So I'm using the download for class 1129 as my starting HTML and CSS. You guys may have your own questions and pictures, your own quiz, but let me show you how this works. So we have our 4 questions. Each question has a picture, it has a question, and it has 4 answers, right? And all these answers, they're in buttons, and they have hover states, hover and active states. Question 1, question 2, question 3, question 4. All right, so what we're going to do, let me show you what the finished product is going to look like. I just happen to have it here. All right, where's the preview? Okay, so this is what the finished product looks like. First of all, you only get one question at a time. Here's my 4 responses. So I'm going to get them all right. What would you feed a cat? High protein cat food. Okay, so when I click on that, I go immediately to the next question. Picture, question text, where should you pet a cat? Under the chin. What is the average lifespan of a house cat? About 15 years. And again, once I answer the question, the old question goes away and the new question comes in. So I'm going to click here. And how many hours per day do cats sleep? They sleep about 16 hours. And then I get a custom response. You got 4 answers right. You are a cat lover. Now, if I take this again and I get all the answers wrong, what would you feed a cat? Canned tuna. You don't want to ever feed them canned tuna. That'll give them diarrhea. Where should you pet a cat? Oh, rub the belly at your peril. What is the average lifespan of a house cat? 5 years. No, they live a lot longer. And how many hours per day do cats sleep? 8 hours. You got 0 answers right. What are you, a dog lover? Okay, so what we're going to do is we have all of the HTML and CSS set up, and we're just going to lay in the JavaScript. So here is the quiz without the JavaScript. And we can see we have each of the individual questions. So the first thing that I want to do for each question is I want to, at the HTML level, we're in the HTML, where we see the answers, I want to indicate whether it's the right answer or the wrong answer. So how do I do that? So each of these are buttons, right? So what we want to have happen is when you click the correct answer, here it is, that it's going to go to the JavaScript and tell it that it got that answer right. So I'm going to set it up on this side just to start with. And then we'll write a little JavaScript that will start to keep track of this. Okay, so one way that we can keep track of it here is this answer is inside of a button tag. So we can add to the button tag something called an event listener, which in this case, or an event on click. And that means when this button is clicked. That's what on click means. There's a few other events, mouse enter, mouse leave, those are events when the mouse rolls over something. On page load is another event. But we're primarily interested in on click, what happens when you click something. So on click, what we want to do is we have to put what we want to do in quotes. We're going to go find a function. We're going to have to name it. Let's call it quiz. And remember, all functions are followed by open and close parentheses. Normally, we don't put anything in there. That would just say go find function quiz and execute it. But in this case, we want to send function quiz a message. And the message I'm going to send is the word right. Okay. So what we're sending to on click, what we're going to do has to be in quotes. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to say do function quiz. That's quiz followed by parentheses. And inside the parentheses, we're going to put the message we're sending. And in this case, the message we're sending is right, meaning that this is the correct answer. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing for the wrong answers. So let's say the first one here, canned tuna, is a wrong answer. So I'm going to go inside the button, and I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to say on click. I'm going to say go find a function called quiz. and send it a message. Oops, sorry. Send it a message, and the message is wrong. Okay. So make sure that wrong is the message itself is in single quotes, because the message that we're, the thing that we're executing, that whole phrase is in double quotes. So it's like when you're writing English, you know, if you have a quote within a quote, you know, if you have a double quote, then if you have a quote within that, that has to be single quotes. So this always has to be in single quotes. Okay, so I'm going to use this same format for the other two wrong answers. So cats eat anything, that's not true. I'm going to go inside of the button tag and I'm going to say onClick equals or does is assigned quiz. Go find function quiz and send it the message wrong. Okay, I'm putting a semicolon at the end of the close paren there. I guess technically you might not, it would still work if you didn't do that, but it would probably be a mistake. Okay, the last one, milk and cream, that is also a wrong answer. So I'm going to say onClick. Oops, sorry. OnClick quiz wrong. Semicolon. Okay, and so now I've set up the first question. So now I'm going to go create a JavaScript. I'm going to set up a variable to catch whether it's the right or wrong answer. And I'm going to create a function called quiz, which is going to keep track of how many right answers and wrong answers I get. So I'm going to make a JavaScript. So I'm going to go to Dreamweaver and say File, New. And it says, what kind of file do you want to make? And I say, I would like to make a JavaScript. And I'm going to create. Okay. So here's my JavaScript document. And before I do anything else, I'm going to go save my JavaScript document inside of my folder. And I know I'm in the wrong folder here. I'm in Quiz Complete here. This is the folder I was in. Is that right? Yes, this is right. Okay. So here, yeah. So I'm going to change the name here from Untitled 1 to, we'll call it quiz.js, or maybe cats.js, just to differentiate the file from the function. So I'll call it cats.js, and I'm inside of my Quiz Complete folder. And I can see that in here I have my quiz HTML and my fancy quiz CSS. Okay, so this JavaScript document needs to be in the same folder as your HTML and CSS. So the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a couple of variables. And I'm going to call one rights, and I'm going to call one wrongs. And what these variables are going to do, they're going to keep track of the right and wrong answers. All right, so I need some way to keep track of them. I need something where I can, you know, keep adding how many you got right, how many you got wrong. So I'm going to start off with these two. And they start off with 0 because they're 0 at the beginning. And then as you go through, you either get a right answer or a wrong answer. So you're going to add one to rights, or you're going to add one to wrongs. Okay, you'll see how this works in a sec. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make function quiz. Okay, now this is the standard format for a function. We use the word function, and then we use the name that we give the function. And this name here, excuse me, it needs to be the same name that we use here. So this is quiz, and this has to be quiz. But notice in the HTML, we're sending it a message. So in parentheses, we're sending it either right or wrong. So what we want to do is we want to put that directly into a variable when the function is called, which is not quite the same as what's going on up here. This is for keeping track. But the way that we can do that is we just give this, we put something in here, the name of a variable, let's call it guess. And so what's going to come in, what's going to happen is when the user in the HTML, when they click on this button and the message wrong is sent to function quiz is going to open up, and whatever's in the parentheses, this is its new name. So guess is going to be equivalent to the word wrong. This is a variable name. And we can start right off the bat by saying console log guess, just to make sure that we're doing what we think we're doing, that the thing that the user selected is actually coming through to the console. Now I know some of you had an issue with the console in class. I have discovered what the problem is. We'll take a look at that in a moment. Okay, so right now the only thing that's going to happen when the user presses the button is it's going to call this function quiz. It's going to pass either right or wrong, and then we're going to write out to the console whether guess is right or wrong. All right, let me go to the HTML for a moment. Is this the right one? No, this is the right one. Okay. So now all we have to do is, we're not done yet. We need to link our JavaScript to our HTML. So that JavaScript that we just wrote, cats.js, we need to link it here in order for when we press this button and onClick says go find a function called quiz instead of the message wrong. If we don't have the JavaScript linked, it's not going to be able to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and link the JavaScript. And when you link a JavaScript or any other script, it's always the script tag. And in this case, we're putting our JavaScript inside of a separate file. So we say script space src, where src is the location of our script file. Now, obviously, the link uses href to tell you where the file is, but script always uses src. So I can either, here in Dreamweaver, I have the code hint. I can just select cats.js, or I can use my browse button and go out and grab cats.js. Okay, not quite done. I have to say type equals text/JavaScript. Okay, now I'm still not done. You can see that my color coding has broken. That's because the script tag always wants a close script tag. Okay, now we have linked our JavaScript to our HTML. We have put a little command into our button so that when a button gets clicked, it's going to go look for a function called quiz and send it a message, either right or wrong. And then in our JavaScript, right now, we're going to grab that message and we're going to write it to the console. So I'm going to try this first. I think my console works, but I'll show you how to make your console work if it does not. So I'm going to do real-time preview. Okay, and I'm in Chrome. And I'm going to view the JavaScript console. Okay, and I'm going to start clicking. Wrong, wrong, right, wrong, 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 right, 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 wrong. Okay, so it's working. So let me show you, just in case this is not showing up when you do this, if you don't see this in your console, if you're in Chrome, in the console, there is this pull-down menu here called Default Levels. You want to make sure that Info is selected. If Info is not selected, you can click this all day and it's not going to write anything to the console. But if you go back to this Custom Levels, make sure Info is selected, and then it will write to the console for you. All right, so we only write to the console just to make sure that the script is working correctly. It just verifies that it has captured the correct word. Okay, so I'm going to go back to Dreamweaver, and before I do anything else, I'm going to go through the rest of my questions, and I'm going to say on-click quiz wrong or on-click quiz right. So I'm going to go through first and just do all the right answers. So I'm going to take the shortcut I'm just going to copy this, and I'm going to go find the right answers. So where should you pet a cat? You should pet a cat under the chin. All right, on click quiz right. What is the average lifespan? It's about 15 years. Okay, how many hours per day do cats sleep? About 16 hours. Okay, now let me draw your attention to something. We're not going to worry about it yet, but let me show you what it's here for. At the very bottom of the screen, we have a div for the results. We're going to actually put the results here. When the quiz starts, it's empty. But after you finish answering all the questions, it's going to give you a result, and it's going to put it here. And we're going to write that in JavaScript. All right, just so FYI, that's what it's doing here. Okay, next is, let's do all the wrong answers. So same thing. I'm going to select on click wrong. And where should you pet a cat? You should not rub the belly. That's the wrong answer. You should not play with the toes. Well, you can, but they'll pull away. Oh, pull the tail. No, not so much. Okay. What is the average lifespan of a house cat? Okay, it's not 5 years. It's not 10 years. And it's not 20 years. It's actually 15 years. And how many hours per day do cats sleep? Do they sleep 8 hours? No. Do they sleep 12 hours? No. They actually sleep 16 hours, so they don't sleep 20 hours. Okay. All right, so now that I've put the link to the quiz function and the right or wrong message into each of the answers, I'm going to go check my code by previewing this. And remember, for all of these, I'm going to get the JavaScript console out. Every time I click a right or wrong answer, wrong, wrong, right, wrong. I should see it reflected here. Okay, right, wrong, wrong, wrong. Good. Let's see, average how. So wrong, wrong, right, wrong, and wrong, wrong, right, wrong. Okay, so I seem to be sending the right message. Okay, that's good. So one part of the task has been completed. Okay, now what I want to do, I want to say, I've written this out to the console to make sure I'm getting the right message. Now I'm going to run a test. I want to know, does the variable guess, does it contain the word right or the word wrong? And if it contains the word right, I'm going to add 1 to the variable rights. That's the number of right answers I got. But if it doesn't, I'm going to add 1 to the variable wrongs. So to do that, I'm going to use an if statement. So if, and then with if statements, you always put the test, the question you're asking, in parentheses. So here the question is, if guess, remember guess is the variable that contains either the word right or the word wrong that we've passed from the HTML. If guess equal means is the same thing as right. Oh, I should use double quotes here, sorry. Right, okay, R-I-G-H-T, yes. Then, we don't actually type out then, we actually just put the squiggle bracket. Then what are we going to do? We're going to say rights as a variable becomes rights plus 1. And what this means is, if after we get past the right or wrong answer, which is put into the variable guess, then if contains the word right, we're going to add 1 to that variable rights. So the first time through, rights is 0. So if we get the correct answer the first time through, we're going to add 1 to 0, and that's going to be 1. And now rights is 1. And if we get the second one correct when it comes in again, rights is going to be 1, and we're going to add 1 to it, and then rights becomes 2. So this is programming math right here. Sometimes you can just say rights plus plus, and that means just add one to rights. I don't use that in JavaScript. C++, that's kind of the programming language. C++ kind of draws on that convention. But here we're going to be very specific and say, take whatever is currently in the variable rights and add one to it. Okay, but we have another option. So if we had more than one, we could do an else if, but there's only two options here. It's either right or wrong. So else wrongs becomes wrongs plus one. Okay. Now we can do a little debugging again. Let's console log and let's say rights equal, oh, let me put a, no, I don't have to, no. Rights equal, sorry, and then a concatenation, and the word rights, and then a concatenation, wrongs equal, and a concatenation, and the variable wrongs. And so what this will do in the console, it'll show us the current value of rights, the variable rights, and the current value of the variable wrongs. And I just put this in quotes because this will just help make it easier for us to read these numbers. So the first number is going to be rights. It's helpful to identify that to say rights is, and then put the rights number, and wrongs is, and put the wrongs number. Okay, let's see if this works. Let me get the console open. All right, Cantuna. Wrong, rights equal 0, wrongs equal 1. Okay. Wrong, rights equal 0, wrongs equal 2. Right, rights equal wrong, wrongs equal 2. Wrong, rights equal 1, wrongs equal 3. Okay, this was the right answer. So rights is 2. Wrong, wrongs is 4. Wrongs is 5, wrongs is 6. So I can go all the way through if I really want to debug this thoroughly to make sure that I get the correct response for each button press, and it looks like I am. Okay, good. All right, so that's good. Okay, so that's the key of the logic, right? Now we have another issue. The other issue is we don't really want to, or for this application, we don't want to have the questions display all the time. We want to show one question at a time. And one of the reasons for that is so that we can prevent this from happening, where people keep clicking and they just keep on adding rights and wrongs before we get to the end. We need a way to make sure they only answer 4 questions and they only answer 1 question at a time. So the way that I've set this up is I've set it up so that when it starts, the only question that you see is this one, is the first one. And then once you make a selection, not only does it get the message of right or wrong and increase the score of rights or wrongs by 1, depending on what you chose, but it makes this question go away and it makes the next question show up. And so this is how it works. In the JavaScript, or even before that, in the CSS, in the beginning, we're going to set this question, and this question. They're going to be invisible. We're going to make them invisible. They'll still be there, they just won't be visible to the viewer. And then when the viewer clicks on an answer, the current question is going to go away and the next question is going to show up. Okay, so to do that, what we have to do ultimately is we have to keep track of how many questions they've answered. But let's start first with just making the bottom 3 questions disappear. Let's see if we can do that. All right. So making the bottom 3 questions disappear is something that we can handle in the CSS. But actually, before we do that, each question is currently inside of a section. So I'm going to perform some JavaScript on each of these questions. So I'm going to need to assign an ID to each section because I'm going to make them appear or disappear depending on which question they're on. So the way I do that, anytime you want to change something in HTML with JavaScript, you need to use an ID. So in this case, I'm going to say ID equal quote Q1. All right, and I'm going to do this strategically because this section ID is Q1, the section ID is going to be Q2. All right, and what that's going to allow me to do, the next one's going to be Q3, the next one's going to be Q4. It's going to let me numerically make them appear and disappear. So instead of naming this like food and this is pet, it's much easier to do it this way. So I'll show you what I mean in a moment. Okay, section 3, I'm going to give it the ID of Q3. And this one here, this last section, it's going to have an ID of Q4. All right. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do in the CSS is I'm going to make Q2, Q3, and Q4 disappear. And it's only going to be invisible when the page loads. So let me go to the CSS. So here after section, I'm going to do Q2, hashtag Q3, hashtag Q4. So when I have multiple style or multiple tags in the CSS and they're separated by commas, it means apply this style to all of these tags. So I'm not looking for a Q3 inside of a Q2. I'm not looking for an image inside of a section. I'm applying this to Q2, Q3, Q4. And there's a couple ways to do this. I forget what I did. I might have said display none. Let me look real quick here. Display none. Yes, okay. So we're going to say display none. Okay. So what that should do is when we start this up, and this happens, we're not going to see question 2, 3, or 4. We're just going to see question 1. So let's see if that works. Oh, look at that. We have only one question. Okay. Now, we're still here. If we look at the console, you know, we're still tallying up rights and wrongs here. What we want to do is as soon as this is clicked, we want it to disappear and to bring in the next question. So let's make it disappear first. So to do this, I'm going to go to the JavaScript. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to say, and I'm going to have to make a variable for this, but let me just do this for question 1 first so you can see how this works. So I'm going to use document get element by ID. And the ID here is, for now we're going to say just Q1. We're going to modify this, but for now we're going to say Q1 dot style. Okay, I have to look and see what this is. Dot style dot display equals quote none semicolon. Okay, so what this does, it says go to the HTML document, go find an ID called Q1, and set the style, the display style, to none. So what should happen here, because this function gets executed when the button is pressed and it says go do function quiz, this should make question 1 disappear. So we're going to modify it in a moment, but this is the basic thing. It says go get an ID called Q1 and make it disappear. So as soon as I click, it should disappear. Oh, there it is. Let me do that again. So here it is. It's the only question here. When I click this, it goes away. Okay, so now that's not quite what I want. What I want to do is I want to keep track of which question I'm on and make the current question disappear and make the next question appear. So to do that, I need to keep track of my questions. So to do that, I'm going to create a new variable up here with rights and wrongs. This variable is going to be called Q's. And I'm going to set it to 0. Right. Okay. So this is how this is going to work. I know that I have 4 questions. I'm not even going to worry about that yet. But the first thing I'm going to do here, instead of saying document get element by ID, make sure that I did this right. Yes, okay. So here, the first time through, Q's is 0. So here, before I go get element by ID, I'm going to say Q's becomes Q's plus 1. What that does is it adds 1 to whatever the variable Q's is. The first time through it's 0, and so 0 plus 1 is 1, and then we get here, and it's going to be, right, and it's going to be 1. Second time through, Q's is 1, we add 1 to it, it becomes 2. So that's how we keep track of the questions, okay, which number we're on. Okay, then here we can't say do this to Q1 because that'll work, but we'll be in the same situation where we're always taking just question 1 and making it invisible. So we're going to change this. And instead of saying do this to Q1, we're going to use concatenation. So we're going to say get element by ID. And because we were really smart in the way that we named our IDs, all the IDs start with a Q and then a number. So if we say get, oh, yeah, I could do it that way, but this will work. So if I say get element by ID, and the ID is the letter Q plus whatever the number of Q's is, that should make it disappear. All right, so we're coming through here. Q's is 0 the first time through. Then Q's is Q's plus 1. And then we get the element by ID, the letter Q plus whatever Q's is. So by this time it's 1. We make it invisible. All right, the second time through, Q's is 1. We add 1 to it, it becomes 2. Get element by ID, Q plus the number 2, that's ID Q2. And if you remember, we were very smart in the way that we named our sections. This is Q1, this is Q2, Q3. So that'll work. We can do it that way. So I'm going to test this, and what's going to happen is it's going to do what it did before. We're going to load it up, and it's going to we're going to make a guess. It's going to write our guess to the console, and then the first question is going to disappear, and then we'll add the other ones to disappear, and I'll show you how to do that in a minute. Okay, here's question 1, canned tuna. Okay, it disappears. All right, now what we need to do, we need to make the next one appear. So we do the same thing. Document get element by ID. It's the letter Q. But instead of just Q's, this time it's the variable Q's plus 1. Haha. Dot style dot display, and instead of none, we're going to say block. Oops, sorry. What this does, it says, okay, you made this one go away. Go get the next one, Q plus whatever this plus 1 is. We didn't set Q's to Q's plus 1. We're just saying Q concatenated with Q's plus 1, dot style dot display equal block. So then it should bring up the next question. So this we're assigning, we're making, the first time through, we're making QS equal to the number 1. So when we say get element by ID Q plus concatenated with QS, Q1, but here we're still saying Q concatenated with QS, which is 1, plus 1, which is 2. So it's not quite the same thing as setting it to 2. It's kind of a slight difference. We could probably write it to do that, but this is a little bit more foolproof. All right, so what should happen here now is we should come through and we should be able to see our first question, click on it, have it go away, and display the next one. And we should go through that until we get all 4 questions, and then at the end we're going to get a blank page. So let's look at this. Okay, what would you feed a cat? Canned tuna. Where should you pet a cat? Under the chin. What is the average lifespan of a house cat? How many hours per day do cats sleep? Now we got nothing. Okay, so it's working. Our little script is working. Now the reason why it went away is because we didn't tell it when to stop, right? So it's going to go through and do this until we tell it when to stop. So what we need is we need another if statement here. We need to put an if statement here that says if Q's is, what do we want to say, less than, I forget if it's 3 or 4, less than 4. As long as Q's is less than 4, because 4 is the last question, then make the thing disappear. Okay, now the same thing is going to happen here because the third time through, QS is going to be 3 and 1 is going to make it 4. So we're still going to see the 4 things disappear, but now we're going to have an alternative. We're going to have an else statement. Let's just put an else. That means if it is 4 or greater, let's do an alert. Alert, you have reached the end. Okay, that means we've done all 4 questions. All right, so let's see how this works. So what's going to happen is we're going to come in, we're going to pass a message of right or wrong. It's going to add 1 to rights if it's right and 1 to wrongs if it's wrong. And then it's going to make the question that we just answered disappear, make the next one appear. But if we're on question 4, then we're going to get an alert, you've reached the end. All right, let's see if this works. Okay, canned tuna, under the chin, 5 years. Oh, you've reached the end. Okay, excellent. Okay, we don't actually want to alert here. What we want to do is we want to put a message into this box in the HTML that we have reserved for the results. All right, so we can go ahead and try that out. So we have, let me show you again, we have an empty div of ID results in the HTML. So instead of alerting you have reached the end, we can actually write something here like your score is, 4 or whatever. I did already put some styles in the CSS for results so that there's a font family, there's a background color, there's a font size, there's a text align, and there's a padding. So there's a basic little box here where whatever we put in there, whatever we want to write in there, we can put it in there. Okay, so instead of this, we're going to say document get element by ID, get element by ID. This time the ID is results. Okay, I have to remember how this works. think it's inner HTML. Yeah, inner HTML dot inner HTML. I just have to look up the syntax for this. Equals quote you got space concatenation rights concatenation space answers right. Okay, so that's very simple. Okay, let's see if this works. Okay, what would you feed a cat? Let's get them all wrong. Canned tuna, rub the belly, 10 years, 20 hours. Oh. Okay, I think I need to make it show up. Oh, right. Yes, okay. So this isn't showing up because I set it to be invisible. All right, so I need to add this. Document get element by ID results dot style dot display equal block. Okay. All right. So we're going to write something into it and then we're going to make it show up. Okay. Canned tuna, under the chin, 5 years, 6 hours. You got 1 answer's right. Okay. So we're starting to get somewhere with our results. It's pretty exciting. Let's get all the answers wrong. So canned tuna, rub the belly, 10 years, 12 hours. You got 0 answers right. All right. Let's get them all right. High protein cat food, under the chin, 16 hours. You got 4 answers right. Okay. So that's pretty exciting. That's like we're almost there. So let me suggest, though, that we want to do something more sophisticated than simply tell them how many answers they got right. Let's say we want to actually show them, show the users what they got right. So to do that, we're going to have to put in an if statement. And we could put an if statement inside of this else. We could say else if rights equals 0 equal 0, then, you know, say you must be a dog lover. Else if rights blah, blah, blah. Okay, so what we're going to do instead is we're going to create another function inside of our JavaScript document, which we can do. So I'm going to go to the end of function quiz, and I'm going to say function. We can name this anything that we want to. I'm going to call this show results. Okay. Okay. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this out of here and put it here. So those 2 lines are now in this separate function. And inside the else statement, I'm just going to say show results. Okay. And JavaScript knows now to go look for a function called show results. So if Q's are less than 4, then make the question appear, you know, and go through this again. But if it's 4 or greater, then go to function show results. And the first thing we're going to do, we're just going to do what we were doing before, and that is put the show us the text of the number of answers we got right. Okay, so let's just make sure that this works. So let's get all, well, we'll just pick the first answer. Oh, there we go. So it works exactly the same way. But now that we have this here, we can be a little more creative. We can say if rights, let's say is, let's say if rights are less than 2. Okay, so 1 or 0. If you got 1 or 0 right, this is what you're going to get. Then document element get, okay, you can copy this. Then we'll say you got these many answers right, and let's do a P. You must be a dog lover. Dog lover, exclamation point. Okay. Dog lover. You must be a dog lover. You must, okay, hang on, yeah, there we go. You must be a dog lover. All right, so if rights is less than 2, that means you got 1 or 0 right. Then it's going to say you must be a dog lover. Okay, but we have 3 options here. Else if rights is less than 4, so it's not 4, which means it's 3. It's 2 or 3. Document get element by ID results. Sorry. Inner HTML. Now we put in our message. You got concatenation rights and answers right. Let's do a P here. Actually, we should put a closed P there. Cats may tolerate you. Close P. Okay, and notice because I'm doing this in JavaScript, I'm typing both the content and the HTML. So I have to make sure that I type it exactly right. I have to put in all the P's, all the styles, everything that I want to stick in here has to be within the quotes. Okay, so then the third option here is else. This means you got them all right. So we don't even have to say else if rights equal 4. This is the last option. So they didn't get less than 2, they didn't get less than 4, they got 4. We say document get element by ID. The ID is results. All right, and we're changing the inner HTML to you got and rights and answers right. Sorry, right. Okay, P. You are a cat lover. Okay, there we go. P. All right. All right, so after we do all these, we say document get element by ID results style display block. So what this happens is, depending on how many things you got right, you get a different message. And after it goes through this if else test, it comes out and it executes this. It displays the results in a block. All right, so let's go take a look. See if that works. So let's get them all right. So high protein cat food, under the chin, 15 years, 16 hours. You are a cat lover. All right, let's get them all wrong. Canned tuna, pull a tail, 5 years, 8 years, 0 answers right. You must be a dog lover. All right, let's get 2 of them right. So we'll say high protein cat food, under the chin, 20 years, 20 hours, 2 answers right. Cats may tolerate you. Okay, and then let's do 3 answers. So, let's see, high protein, under the chin, 15 years, 8 hours. You got 3 answers right. Okay, so now we have a custom answer for every score that our users get. So the next thing we might want to do is we might want to put a little picture in there with each of the with each of these. Okay, now I just have to remember. So we're going to have to put this in here. Actually have to do the background. Okay. So we're going to have to add the images here. Now I have the images in the folder. Let's go find our folder. And there's 3 of them. There is, let me find it. Meh is if you get 2 right, 2 or 3 right, that's the image you get. And I think this one, nope. Cat, food, meh, where's the dog? Pet, nope. Huh. All right, I'm missing, seem to be missing my, okay, so cat.ping, this is the cat lover. Oh, here's dog. I didn't see it for some reason. There's the dog. Okay, so if you get 0 or 1 answers, you get the dog picture. If you get 4 answers, you get the cat picture. And if you get 2 or 3 answers, you get the med picture. So I think I've already set something up in the CSS. Yes, results IMG is with 25%. So what we're going to do is for each of our answers here, we're going to add a picture. Okay, to add the picture, we actually are going to add it right into here, where we're already sort of writing out the text for the results ID. So in our HTML is a concept that if you ever use this in JavaScript, it overwrites whatever is currently inside your HTML tag and replaces it with whatever's in the parentheses here. So we're going to have to add the image directly in here inside the JavaScript. So I'm going to do it this way. So we have you got rights, answers, right, and then I'm going to add a P. Oh, it's beeping at me for some reason. I'm going to add a P. And then I'm going to add the image tag, img src equal, and then I'm going to put the path to the dog image. And remember, since we're a quote within a quote, we have to use single quotes here. So that was in the images folder, and I think it was called dog.ping. Okay, and then I'm going to close the img tag, and then close that P. There we go, sorry. So writing HTML inside of JavaScript is not fun, but you know, it does work. You just have to be really careful to make sure that you know, like you're using a single quote here if you need to use a single quote, that you spell the tags correctly, because there's no code hints when you're putting stuff like this into JavaScript. But it should work. So let's test it out. Okay, so I'm going to get all the answers wrong, so hopefully we'll see the dog. So milk and cream, pull the tail, 20 years. Oh, there's the dog. Oh my goodness. Now, I put him inside of a P, right? And I also, in the CSS ahead of time, I set up a style for him. I said make him 25% of his container, which is this thing here. I could make him bigger. I could say make it 50%. That might be too big. But if I do that, so I'm going to get them all wrong again. Milk and cream, pull the tail. Okay, much bigger dog. So we could do something like 30%. So you can control, oops, you can control the style of things that you're writing to the HTML with JavaScript if you set it up in advance in the CSS. Okay, so now we're going to do exactly the same thing for the other 2 responses. So this one, if rights is less than 4, so it's 2 or 3, and this is the meh picture. So I'm going to follow this format, and I'm going to put in a P. Okay, here, P. And img src equal single quote images slash, and I think it's called meh.ping, close caret, close P. It's really hard writing HTML inside of JavaScript. And I need a semicolon here. All right. And I think the last one, I think it's just called cat. The last picture, let me double check. Yeah, it's called cat.ping. Okay. So this is for the cat lovers. Document get element by ID. Okay, so I'm going to put a new P here. And then IMG. Sorry. IMG src equals single quote images cat.ping. Remember, these are inside of the images folder. Close caret, close P. All right. So we set up our content here under each if statement depending on how many you got right. If you got 0 or 1, this is your message. You got these numbers right. This is your image, and this is you must be a dog lover, your little comment. So we set this up first, and then we tell it to display the results ID. Okay, let's see what we got. Let's try to get them all right this time. So high protein cat food, under the chin, 15 years, 16 hours. You are a cat lover. All right, let's try getting 2 of them right. So canned tuna, under the chin, 15 years, 8 hours. Oh, okay, this tells me I goofed up in my writing of the JavaScript, right? It looks like I put this little caret the wrong way. So it's really easy to do that when you're writing HTML inside of JavaScript. All right, where are we? Up, there it is, right there. Okay, and I also saw that I saw here. I need a space here. Okay. All right, let's try it again. Let's try to get 2 or 3 right. So high protein cat food, play with the toes, 15 years, 8 hours. Okay, cats tolerate you. You know, and that's it. That's our little quiz. So you can change this up, you know, any way that you want. You can use the CSS. I use it, you can change the image. Let's say we didn't want the background color to be antique white. We wanted it to be, I don't know, deep pink. It's going to be hideous, but you can do it that way. Do, 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 do. Ah! All right, the antique white is nicer. But if, for example, if we put this in here as antique white, but let's say on the, if you get 0, so let's say you want to change results in our HTML. If you want to change the background color of results, I think you could do that. Let's say document get element by ID. Which ID results? What are we messing with? I think it's style. Background color equals deep pink. Let's see if it changes that to deep pink. I don't know if it will, but I think that's how it would work. Let's try that. Okay, so let's get them all wrong. Canned tuna, pull the tail. Oh, okay. And then if we go back and get them all right, under the chin. Okay, we don't change that. So you can change a number of things with get element by ID. And if you want to change the HTML, that's where you put the content. If you want to change the style, that's where you change it. And like, so notice that background color, when you reference it in JavaScript, background, that's how it's spelled. There's no hyphenation. The nice thing that Dreamweaver will do for you is it will show you how it's supposed to be spelled. It has some code hints. So what do I mean? Results dot style. Okay, now let's say I want to do font family. See, it shows me right there equals, I don't know, Courier. That's the typewriter font. So you can do a lot of things there. All right, I'm going to stop now because I've been going on for about an hour, but hopefully this will help you figure out how to complete your quiz. We will have time in class on Tuesday. It's basically going to be dedicated to completing the quiz. All right. Good night, everybody.